Web3 is not Web2. You have to understand that. And if somebody is asking you a question, hey, you know what? Where is your 100,000 developers and $500,000 as a revenue month on month?
Yeah, that's usually an investor that doesn't know what they're talking about, especially with early stage crypto projects. And what I tell those investors is, hey, maybe crypto startup investing isn't your game. Maybe you should go buy a low cost S&P 500 index fund instead. Maybe that's more your speed, because you
Yeah.
clearly don't know what the you're talking about. Show
So
me what project in crypto has 500K MRR.
FTX versus government versus Web3 developers. Who is going to be WGMI?
Ooh.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you so much for coming over the call and also taking out the time. I know it's a busy schedule for you, and since you have also started your own new journey, congratulations and kudos to that as well. Like
Thank you.
it's always love to see you in way like you kind of work closely with the founders. And I'm going to make sure in this entire episode we just talk about founders and we just talk about the people and talk about like how you can be as a founder, how you can basically grow yourself, keep yourself away from how scammers and the people in the space as well, which is like fill of all of those people. We'll make sure we keep our conversation to that direction. But yeah, starting with the first question,
Yep.
which I always ask people to do is justification is like one thing, just introduce yourself.
Yep.
If you have to introduce yourself within 2 lines, how you are going to just pitch yourself, that is something one we'd love to hear, and then we'll take the conversation forward from there.
By the way, great to see you again, friend. Like, you're one of my favorite builders in the crypto Web3 space, and I think anybody watching this or listening is very fortunate to kind of like be within the same journey of you and the entire team at Sphero. It's been amazing watching you guys execute. But for those of you that don't know me, I'm Gabriel. I am the founder and managing partner of Graph Paper Capital. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but I'm previously the founder and managing director of Tachyon, which is a company, a Web3 accelerator that I incubated inside of Consensus Mesh. Prior to that, 3-time founder, 2-time EIR. In crypto and Web3 specifically, I've at this point invested in more than 90 founders within the space. They've gone on to raise about 150 million at about $1 billion in total valuations. But I am, amongst many things, I'm super passionate about Web3 entrepreneurship and working closely with founders who are mission driven on this journey of re-architecting the entire internet to be a more open, interoperable, and user-owned and operated ecosystem. So
I believe you have given a very deep knowledge. But yeah, just to summarize on that part as well, in a very short line, if I have to say, if you are a founder looking to work with somebody, Gab is the guy who you should be working with.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, because I have personally speaking, Gab, like I have learned a lot from you as I like personally on the person to person level. Even it is going to be live as well. People are going to see this as well. The same communication, nothing is going to be hidden. But there is one thing which I always loved about being the founders, being the people like you into the space is like you just talk the shit out. Like
Yeah.
it's very straightforward. That is, let me speak that word also, right?
Yeah.
That shit out talk is also something very important for the founders to understand where they
Yeah.
are signing up themselves. Sometimes we see the Web3 glamour world where people are driving like with the Mercedes, like Ferrari. I don't know like what are the people are driving with them, but they forget one more thing is like there are founders who are struggling. There are founders who are really building something cool to innovate the industry, and they need some support and they need a real thought process, a real following, so that they can keep on building on the thought process what they are up. Keeping that thought process in line again, just wanted to understand from you one more thing is when you wake up every day in the morning. I know this because I have been like seeing you in the morning as well during
Yeah.
my days with you.
Super energetic. Bring in the heat. GM, GA, GN. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Buckle up. Yeah.
So we have seen you, but there is always one thing which, like for example, me, right? Whenever I wake up from my bed, I always think like what I'm going to do today.
Yeah.
When you wake up from the bed, what you think first thing? The second thing is like what keeps you motivated to keep that energy into you?
Yeah. There's probably a couple of different ways to answer that. I get really energized by people who are trying to bring something or create something new into the world. I mean, having been a founder 3 times myself, I've gone in-house, I've built my own companies. Building a company is probably the single hardest thing anybody will ever do. It is a very difficult journey. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage and grit and perseverance. And even then, you still might not succeed, right? And so, I personally get very excited. Setting, my excitement around Web3 and crypto aside, I love working with founders and builders. You must be a crazy sick to decide that you are going to try to take on this journey of building a company, creating anything of creation takes a tremendous amount of effort and grit and perseverance. I like to tell founders all the time, creation is a violent act, right? Because the normal thing to do is to continue on with status quo. Human beings are geared to want to continue on with the way things are. We are comfortable with consistency. We are comfortable. We're creatures of comfort. That's our natural DNA. But to be a founder is to look at the world and say the world is incomplete. There's something that I believe can be fixed about the world. And I'm crazy enough to think that I can create something and bring it to life. And, there's all kinds of it's a psychological game more than anything, I think, because you're constantly trying to overcome challenges and trying to overcome well-funded incumbents and trying to, especially if you're building in crypto and Web3, we're trying to rebuild the internet, and they're well-funded, incumbents that already exist in the space. So I get very excited about working with people who are like me, that are just kind of, built a little differently and want to try to create something. And I want to help people bring amazing companies into the world and birth them into the world. And I know the challenge of doing so. And founders are just my people. It's my tribe. I don't know. I don't know how else to answer that.
I love the entire answer, because you can't fake such kind of enthusiasm, right? So you might have seen the people coming with a lot of enthusiasm into the Web3 space, and then after 2 years, they will be gone, right?
Yeah.
The most likely they'll be gone.
That's right.
Because you can't keep on continuing on the same enthusiasm if you're not passionate, and if you're just looking for the money, then you won't.
You're gonna flush out.
Yeah.
Especially when we start hitting bear markets. I know the hucksters. I'm damn near allergic to the hucksters. I can smell them. It's like a scent that I can pick up, and I steer very far away from them. It's not my scene. They're not my people, right? If you're here for the short term, if you think you're gonna get rich in crypto or any other industry, good fucking luck to you. It is hard. It is really hard to get rich in any domain, but especially in a fast-moving frontier technology space like crypto and Web3. I like playing the long game, and I like playing with people who are playing the long game and are really trying to build real companies to serve real customers and users, who are really mission-oriented. They have a North Star. Again, founders are my people. This is my tribe. I don't know. It's just how I'm built, how I'm wired.
Yeah, but continuing with that interesting topic which you just brought, so whenever you move fast, right, in any of the fast-moving industries, there are a lot of people who will who will be shit out, as you move faster. And it's not a philosophy of something which you can read it in the book. It is just a very natural philosophy. The moment the air starts flowing fast, the leaves and the trees starts falling apart. The trees which are stronger, they will be standing still, and the trees which are not, they will fall. It's a very natural tendency which basically nature also follows, and that is something which everywhere it has been. But there is one tendency which I have seen into the Web3, right? There are people, I can't take their names because this is going to be public, but
we're not going to call them.
So there are people who have made a quick buck into the industry. They have. When I see around myself, and it's a very genuine question I'm asking from you, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there might be founders like us. I have already overcame from that area. I have already done that.
Yeah.
But think on a founder's perspective who have just gone into building a very right product, awesome product, and doing everything good around the space.
Yeah.
But suddenly when he looks on the sideline of it, he sees a friend of his or some very close colleague or some colleague of colleague has just made $10 million by rug pulling, or has just made $10 million by dumping some tokens or investing early investment or doing all of those things, and made enough money to move to some very good, cool places, or even they have enough cash now, whatever they want to do. Now their life is kind of changed. But this guy who has been building into the space very rigidly by keeping all the ethics intact, what are the suggestions for you to those founders who are doing this?
The nature of the game is, especially in crypto and Web3, I think money is at kind of the core of what we're building, right? We're building these technologies that can transfer money digitally and natively, and so money is kind of at the core of the space that we're building in. There's nothing wrong with desiring money. There's nothing wrong with trying to, create wealth for yourself, for your family. There are people who are going to play the short game and are going to succeed. It's just, I know a few of them as well, and I wonder how they sleep at night, or if they actually are fulfilled, if they're happy, if they're enjoying themselves. I don't know. I can't speak on them. And, and if you're a founder and you see somebody who like is the quick artist who ends up making a couple dollars in the space because, they're doing some kind of pump and dump, bullshit. I don't know. Like, I care how I make my money. I want to be able to add a lot of value to a lot of people's lives. That matters to me. And I sleep just well at night. And the people that I end up backing, they also sleep very well at night. And so, you're going to see people who in our space who are going to do the shortcuts. Most of them don't end up succeeding, but a few of them will. They'll slip through the cracks. At the end of the day, though, like, does that matter to you? I can tell you, I've made a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money. Money is not going to make you fucking happy. So at the end of the day, it's like, what are you doing? Who are you? What matters to you? What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want to create in this world? Like, who do you want to create it with? How do you want to exist? Who do you want to be with? Who do you want to spend your time with? And I think the happiest people who are both rich and happy are the ones who are really honest with themselves about what they want and make a concerted effort to try to give value to other people. And the game of entrepreneurship, it is one that I want to play for the rest of my life. It is the greatest positive sum game that I can think of. I mean, think about this for 1 second. If you are successful as a founder and an entrepreneur playing the long game, you get rich by, one, helping other people, like your customers and your users. You make your investors rich along the way. Like, it is the best positive sum game. And along the way, the market forces you, whatever you're bad at as a founder, if you're bad at building product, if you're bad at hiring, if you're bad at, if you need to build up your technical skills, if you need to build up your sales skills, wherever you have a deficit, entrepreneurship will expose that deficit, and it will force you to grow and develop. It is the best positive sum game. I hope I get to play it for the rest of my life. And that's how I want to build companies. That's who I want to build companies with, are those kinds of people. It's just how I'm built. And so, like, yeah, I mean, like, our short-term people and short-term thinkers get a little rich along the way. Sure, it's going to happen. Like, what are you doing? What do you care about? Who do you care about? What do you want to build in this world? There's something magical about having an idea and then bringing it to life, and like having real users and real customers who are using your product. I can tell you, I wish product market fit on every founder listening to this. It's the best drug. It is the best drug. And there's nothing that gets you more excited than building a product or a service or a company and having other people use it. Money won't fill that. No amount of drugs will fill that. Alcohol, booze, women, men, whatever your thing is, nothing will fill that. But that feeling is the best.
Definitely.
It is the best. And if you're a founder, that turns you on more than anything. And that's what you should aspire for and aspire to. All the nonsense and the noise. Like, play the long game. The long game is the game that's the most fun.
Yeah. So just to add on top of that, right? So whatever you just said, everything makes great sense to me. Like, because our journey has been very spiky, and you know that, like, how the journey was kind of started with. So the people who are going to be listening this entire episode, I request everyone is to don't take a look around you. That is one thing which you have to do as an entrepreneur. You have to just take a look in front and just take a look like how you can make your users' life easy, how you can make your product or your team life easy, or whatever you are kind of working on.
Yeah.
Other people who will be coming around with the Ferrari and everything, there is a very common thing which everyone might have seen in their life as well, or they might have heard when they were in childhoods. There was a story behind a turtle and a rabbit, where different scenarios people kind of win. So you have to decide what you want to be at which point of a time, and depending on like stage of your company, stage of that, just take a very right decision, as what Gab has just now told.
There's one thing that I really want to like land here, because this for me has been really important. I'm 42 now, so I've built 4 companies. I've done the founder thing 4 times now, so I've been around the block a few times. I've learned a few of the lessons the hard way. The thing that and we haven't even gotten into like crypto, Web3, and like what does it look like to try to find product market fit in this space versus like maybe Web2. this is kind of like just general startup founder advice, but I would say that the two things that really matter for especially early stage founders, one, to what you were just saying, like learn to like close off the rest of the world and grind alone. I love being by myself and just putting in the work and putting in the reps when nobody's paying attention. It is my favorite. It's me against me, and it turns me on. But the second thing, the thing that it took me a long time to figure this out, is find your people, find your tribe, because building the entrepreneurship thing is very hard and it's very lonely, and they're like, your partner isn't going to get some of the things that you're going through sometimes, and like, so like get around your squad, get around your people, find the people who energize you, who hold you accountable, who see how great you can be and what you can build in this world, and like hold you to that high bar. Like get around those. You're like, you, Prashant, are that for me, and I try to be that for you. Like you want to find those people who, like, you look at them and you're inspired by them and you're like, that's, yes, like I want to go out and do my version of it. That's what you want to do.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
And that is something which I also learned at a very hard way over the time, is like at 2 a.m. in the night, you just start feeling panic attack because you don't know like why my users are not responding me. I have to like get on a call to somebody just to ask, like, comfort me down. So you need people around you like who have done that earlier, or who should have like either they can connect you with the right people or they can basically help you out. So that is something which every founder should know. I believe these two things are much more important for any founders to even move forward. Keeping that discussion forward, right, around the founders and everything. I heard you have recently like moved from Takeon, I believe, when we were working also closely. Now you're working on something very interesting. So tell me one thing is like, when you started GPC, which is full form, it will be better for you, like you can call it out. But when you started this, like, what is your few ways you are going to find the founders? So let's say there is a founder A who wants to come and join, let's say, GPC, or who wants to become the part of your cohort. What is something which you will be looking into? So as a founder, what are 3 things? I'll not focus on 10 different things. Let's focus on only 3 things. 3 specific things which you will be focusing on while filtering out those founders. Yeah, and then we'll take the conversation again. There is one more thing which is going to be hidden there. I'll ask that after that.
I really love the 0 to 1 stage of company building. It's where I can add a lot of value. Like once a founder starts getting to like raising their Series A or their Series B, I'm not very helpful or useful. I'm really good at the early stages when you're trying to find product market fit. How do you go to market? How do you get early users and customers? What should your product look like? That's where I'm really good. The early stage, the pre-seed, what in venture we would call the pre-seed and seed stage. So first and foremost, the first thing that I look for is the quality of the founder, right? Like basically found what's called founder market fit. I'm looking for somebody who I want to bet on, who I think is smart, who is high integrity. I'm looking for somebody who I think has that grit, that perseverance, it's going to push through. Especially at the early stages, finding product market fit is this iterative cycle, right? You're constantly experimenting and trying to launch new versions, new products, new narratives, new USPs. And it feels a lot like taking 3 or 4 steps back and then 4 or 5, giant leaps forward, and 3 or 4 steps back, which become very discouraged. It's a certain personality that I think is going to continue to persist through that process. So I think first and foremost, it's the person or the team that I'm backing. Do I believe in them? Do I believe that they believe in what they're trying to build? Do they have that grit? Do they have that perseverance? Do they have that North Star? Are they highly opinionated and have a version of the world that they think should exist? Now, flexible enough in terms of how they get there and open to feedback, but very opinionated in terms of like that North Star. I believe the world should look a certain way, and I want to dedicate the next 5-10 years of my life to making it happen. I think that's first and foremost, like that's the biggest thing. That's like 60 or 70% of the equation. After that, there's a couple of things that I look for. Again, I'm early stage, so one, I want to know, can you clearly articulate the problem or the core needs of a clear set of users or customers that you're targeting. And I've found time and time again that the best founders that we've met can very clearly articulate the problem space because they've just spent a lot of time on the problem. Either they personally have like really experienced the problem, like for you and Mitcha, for example, like you guys just knew what was wrong with the current infrastructure stack, where the vulnerabilities were, and why we want a more decentralized, infra stack. You knew the space as developers. You've been doing a lot of building, so you knew the problem intimately. And I think that only comes from either spending a lot of time with users or you have firsthand knowledge of really like the problem you're trying to address. I think the second thing I look for is, again, just evidence that you're the right person to solve this particular problem. Like, what do you know about the market? What do you know about the customer that others don't? Do you have a unique insight into the market that others are missing? Or do you have some version of like a history of success or a life story that shows that grit of perseverance that we were just talking about, to be able to push through to results? Why are you the right person to build this particular thing? Even if you end up pivoting, in terms of like what your product ends up looking like, again, like, do you have a good handle on the space and why? Answer the question for me, like, why are you the one to pull this off of all the people that we could back? And then third is, if you don't have traction already, and that's okay, I think the third thing that I really look for is, do you have a track record of bringing something into this world, right? Like, the world is full of people with great ideas, but short on execution. And so, like, if you're an idea person, that's great. But I look for people who can ship things, who can create things, big things, small things. It doesn't matter to me. Like we're just saying, creation is a violent act. It takes a lot of effort. It takes sacrifice. It takes perseverance. These are all traits that I see in myself and the people that I surround myself with. And it's what I look for in founders. And so, and within that, there's a lot of like nuance around the market that you're building in, why Web3 or why is decentralization a better, a better solution? There are trade-offs when you are trying to build a decentralized community product, what have you, versus centralized solutions. Have you thought about that? Like there's some nuances there in terms of like product market fit in crypto and Web3. I think you get a lot of unfair competitive advantages versus Web2. But it really starts with like that solid foundation around the core team, the insight into the market, that kind of stuff.
That basically brings me some more interesting things. While you were talking, I was just trying to figure it out, most of the things around it, like how exactly you pointed us correct. Like, so when we started, I still remember like when we used to, even today also, when I and Mitra, when anyone sit together, we just think on one thing is like, if we are going to succeed, we are going to succeed. There is no way like we won't. If we will not succeed, then we will be able to create a market or an idea, or we are going to leave behind a tons of experience with that, which is going to be used by other founders who can just rally on the same success as well, or same story as well. So that is something which I kind of love about like about us as well, just to like tell about us a little bit, but love the entire all these 3 points. Okay, so from the founders, quality to understanding the idea and exploring the market and product market fit kind of idea, it is something which is really great. Keeping that point intact, right? So there are a few terms which are not been very touched in Web3. You will rarely find people like talking about those terms on the founder perspectives, which is called pivot. Okay, if anyone has watched Silicon Valley episode, or they might have watched something else around those, they might have already seen like, so pivot is something which is it's a change in behavior. It's not just a change in behavior. It's like you had the baby yesterday, and then today the baby is now like no more there. You have to just change the baby entirely. So you have to give him 4 different legs or 4 different hands. I don't know how exactly that works. But that part has not been talked about, and people start correlating the baby with the startup, right? And then it basically stops them from pivoting in what they want to like really achieve with creating the foundership. So what is your thought around the pivot in Web3? If a founder is thinking about the pivot, what should be the thought process in his head or in her head, right? Whosoever will be building their product.
Yeah. There's this great quote from Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI, but previously the president of Y Combinator. And I've thought about this a lot. I have pondered this thought quite a bit, both for myself and for the founders that I work closely with. And I was actually just pulling it up as you were talking. He once said, "I still underestimate the compounding power of the rapid execution and iterated learning feedback loop. A commitment to this over the course of a career is the closest thing you can get to guaranteed success. I think about that a lot. There's almost no guarantees in life, but in startup world, that process, that iterative learning process and feedback loop, being very, very close to your customers or users is like the closest you can get to guaranteed success. And what that means in short, in terms of your question around the pivot, is a lot of us as founders, we fall in love with our idea, or we fall in love with a particular technology, or we fall in love, like when we're in our heads, like we just have a version of the world that we just think about a lot, and you need that. But then you need to put it into the messiness of the market. And if you are really customer and user centric and like really committed to building something for users, then you care less about the end version of what that looks like and more about, did it solve my user's problem, or does it fulfill a need that they have? And so the pivot is all about, the very tactical part of the pivot is just, is your current thing sticking, right? And one of the easiest ways to tell is, for every user you bring in, do they bring another user? It's your K factor, your virality, whatever you want to call it. If people are not excited enough about what you're doing that they are telling other people about it, then you might be on the wrong track, right? And so, the thing is to not be romantic. Don't be romantic about the thing that you're trying to do, or at least the way that you're trying to do it. You should be obsessed with trying to solve the problems for your users. And so the pivot is all about, like, if you listen to your users, you'll start to get an instinct, right? Like a spidey sense, if you will, around what the answer is, because you've spent so much time with your early users and your early customers. Like, like for you guys, like you spend a lot of time with developers that are developing the space, whether, they're, experienced developers, maybe newer developers, maybe they're, experienced Web 2 developers that are coming into Web 3, and you talk to them over and over again, you start hearing the same problems over and over again. And so you might be on one track, and you might like, oh, wait a minute, everybody thinks it's this, but actually it's that. And so we're going to kind of like pivot into this other solution, but we can't like spend months on the pivot. We might be dead by then. So you want to try to test that pivot really fast and rapidly with real users and real customers. Some people might call it a minimum viable solution or a minimum viable product, depending on your industry, depending on the domain that you're in, the vertical that you're in. There's different versions of that. Like obviously, if you're building a DeFi protocol, for example, that where real money is on the line and you need smart contract audits, your version of an MVP or pivot might look very different than like an NFT marketplace type of product. So it really depends on like your domain and your vertical. But the art of the pivot is really getting like attached to the hip, or what I like to call belly to belly with your users and your customers. You spend enough time with your customers and your users, you'll develop this sixth sense for them, right? Like you can almost sense their problems, and then you're like, okay, all right, I think I know. I think we're on to like what this might look like for them, and then it's just trying to create that minimum viable solution to tease out, is this it? Does this work? Does this solve your problem? Is this good enough? And then you kind of like, you're on the way. But it starts with that. It's that quote from Sam Altman that I said at the beginning of this, which I think I spend a lot of time thinking about it, right? It's just that iterative process. What about this? What about that? No? Well, what about this? Do you want to like that? Does it look more like that? And it's, so some people make these really big, grandiose pivots, right? Like they completely change marketplaces or verticals. And then most people, when they say pivot, what they're actually referring to is just like iterations, right? You're kind of like journeying through the product landscape or the product maze to try to get to some semblance of product market fit.
I totally agree on that. And there are a few more things like, so attaching with that is like, I have a couple of times I have heard from the founders, like if you tell pivot to the people, they might see like you as a failure, where they start understanding like you don't have a expectation of the market. You don't understand where the market is.
Yeah.
But there's one more thing which always kind of put me in a question is like, I always go and think about it a lot. Web3 as a space, if you look at it, it is still, I believe, in early 2000, even before that, right? In terms of the adoption cycle, if I have to say. And nobody all of these founders were trying to like, not only founders, I believe a lot of people were asking questions to these founders. Hey, you know what? Why you're not giving me 2 million users? Right? Why you're not giving me 200,000 users or 100,000 users? It's like right? You don't even have these many people yet into the Web3. So pivot in Web3 space is basically is like what I have understood over the time is like as a founder, we all should embrace it because that is something which is going to help you to
Yeah.
understand where the business is. But sometimes, and this is also a question to you, is like
Yeah.
I'll tell our example, very classic example of ours, and that is why I take that is because we have been building into the developer space. There were not very many people who were building into that space earlier. Now the space is getting more and more people coming in. That is also good. But when we got into this space, we kind of realized is like if you look at a very high angle, then you might feel not like you need such kind of product into the market. Okay. But the moment you zoom in, like the incident which happened with the Arbitrum, right? So just imagine if Arbitrum would have had its own user interface running on a decentralized infrastructure, or they might have opened it up. Product like us would have become very useful at that point of a time, right? Then community can go and spin up their applications and open up a decentralized infra. They don't even have to rely on a founder to basically run or basically depend on a user interface for that sake. We did not realize. So a few years back when we were doing that, a lot of people came to me and said like, hey, you know what, this is not going to work out. It is not. And but as a founders, we were also very motivated to launch DeFi. I'll be very honest. Like I was at a point, and I told you that as well, like once, we were very motivated to launch that. But now, imagine this is the same case which is happening with somebody else. I have already told my scenario, right? But this market is still where what should be a PMF. Like the question is basically where I'm trying to drive it out is like, what exactly is a PMF? Is there a number which has to be attached? Is it a gut feeling? Like you have already told, when you start getting +1 of your users, that is the different thing. But let's try to understand. Like I'd love to ask you, apart from that, if there is a number which we have to put on the PMF, or there is something which we have to put on a PMF, is it really good numbers available in the market to put on those numbers? Or is it something we just have to feel as a founder and just keep moving into that direction?
Yeah. I don't think there is an exact numeric value where you have product market fit. It is more of a feeling. And I can tell you, I got to product market fit with my third startup. Product market fit, at least in the Web2 space, feels like you are running or trying to catch up to demand. Everything that you're doing is trying to catch up. It's like, holy shit. It's like you feel like you're going 100 miles an hour with your hair on fire. Everything is falling apart, and you're just trying to catch up to demand. In crypto and Web3, it's slightly different because the market hasn't really found, the core technology stack hasn't really found product market fit. I mean, like, we can probably together count on one hand the number of companies within the space that actually have product market fit, right? It's probably going to be like a Polygon, it's probably going to be like a Uniswap, market makers or AMMs, maybe like the big wallets, maybe like a MetaMask or something like that. There are very few companies that actually have, at least the way that we would look at it in terms of like Web2, that actually have product market fit. So I think in crypto Web3, we need to kind of step back a little bit. And so let me just start with my definition of product market fit. Product market fit is, there's a couple of core components. It's when first the right team is focusing on some version of like a high value pain point. It's in a growing market, so growing space. The product or the team has a unique advantage in their solution, and there is a specific target or user that has been identified, okay? So there's a couple of components there, right? Let me just unpack these one by one. So I'll come to some version of of what I think product market fit looks like in crypto and Web3 right now. But first, you've got the right team, right? We've already talked about this. I talked ad nauseum about this. It is founder market fit, right? You have a unique insight into this particular market or this particular customer segment, and you know the market pretty well. High value pain points. Okay. So most startups, Web2 or Web3, but especially in Web3, most startups never find real problems to solve. They find generalities, they find annoyances. They don't actually find real problems that customers or users are willing to give some version of value, time, money, even if you're, aping into a particular token in exchange for. So I think as a founder, what you're really trying to hone in on is a high value pain point. The third component is in a growing market. So in crypto, this is what we were just talking about. In crypto, aside from the handful of, customers or a handful of products that exist in Web3 that I think we could say have product market fit, it's a pretty small market still. I think the TAM is not very large depending on your market segment. So what you're looking for then, if you're building in a vertical within crypto or Web3, is you're looking for a fast growing market, and you want to get a sizable percentage of market share in a small but really fast growing market. So this market is compounding. Its CAGR, its compounding annual growth rate, is 2, 3, 4, 500%. So your base, your market share or TAM base might be really small, but it's growing at a rapid pace. And so you're kind of like, you've got a massive tailwind behind you because this market is growing really fast. So I think back in the early days, DeFi was that. Then NFTs came about and NFTs became that. Go back and forth in a couple of different spaces or segments, markets within crypto and Web3 that are starting to grow at really high and fast CAGRs. But that's what you're looking for. Okay, so right team, high value pain point, right? Most founders find annoyances, not actual pains. Growing market, just touch on that with a unique advantage. Okay, so your users have both, especially in crypto, they have Web 2 alternatives, and then they have alternatives within the space, right? So like in Spearon, right? Like a lot of your users might still be using Web 2 infra companies, right? So there's alternatives in the marketplace, both Web3 native alternatives, but also Web 2 alternatives. And so what you really need to do is once you've identified that pain point in a growing market, you really need to come up with a unique advantage in your solution. There is something that your product does that is, even if it's niche down in a particular wedge, it does that one thing really fucking well relative to my alternatives or my options in the marketplace, right? So like if I join a community or a network and I'm issued like an NFT in terms of like membership, right? There are other ways that you could give people access to that particular, community that don't require me to go through the UX hassles of like using my token to unlock the private Discord community or, get access to the, whatever. But one of the things that NFTs do in terms of like membership, the unique advantage that they have, for example, is they are composable with other pieces of the Web3 stack, which means other communities now can use them in a permissionless way to create new value for members of your network or your community, as an example. So that has a unique advantage in the solution. That's just an example. And then the last piece of product market fit is a specific target identified. And this is really important. I think a lot of founders, a lot of us, we go too broad. Like we think that we need to have scale. So in the world of startup building, sequence matters. You need leverage first, scale comes second, right? And so what you want is a high leverage solution because it will grow rapidly, and that leverage gives you a lot of momentum in a marketplace, which then leads to scale down the road. So that's my definition of product market fit. And then in Web3 and crypto specifically, I think the playbook of the roadmap for finding product market fit in crypto or Web3 is you really want to find stickiness. Even if it's a few users or a few customers, are they coming back? Are they repeat users? Are they coming back to your product or service? I think that's a really good metric, qualitative metric to look at. Is there stickiness there with users? And then some version of a K factor or a virality, even if it's a small base. Does one person bring in another person? That really will matter when you start to throw gasoline on the fire. Your LTV to CAC ratios, a lot of VCs will start to look, especially in your A rounds and in your growth rounds, at your unit economics or unit metrics. And so if you can get that in the beginning with a really small group of early users, I say this all the time. Like it is much better to have a few number of users who absolutely love your product, love your solution, than trying to go for scale out of the gate. I think that's really, so it's a highly iterative process. I think that's roughly what you're looking for. Once you start to get that flywheel going, that motion going, then as a founder of building Web3, now you start looking at scale in terms of product market fit. And this is where you can introduce, I think, really strong crypto primitives that give you an unfair competitive advantage versus, like Web2 companies trying to find product market fit. The introduction of things like tokens, once you have some version of that early stage of product market fit, like tokens are really good, really strong. These now become essentially your viral marketing mechanisms, right? So that's really now where you get that cost-effective CAC, customer acquisition cost really going. I spent years in Web 2 building building startups, where a lot of our CAC was given to Facebook, for example, in the media buying space. In crypto or Web 3, you can really get that engine going, whether it's tokens or NFTs. Basically where the value is being shared with your network and your community in exchange for bringing in more users, right? That's where you really get that scale. There's some other, like when you start decentralizing, introducing decentralized governance. I think that's as you start hitting that maturity phase, you have some unfair competitive advantages as you pass decision making onto the network. But those early product market fit stages, I think that's how I would think about it as a Web3 founder.
So if you have to summarize it, it's like I believe it is one of the deepest thing which I've ever heard about PMF so far in Web3. Somebody talking about it very deeply, and people are going to love it. But just to on the very summary levels, there is what I kind of understood is like if you have to measure your product market fit, you as a founder, you just have to decide, are you ready for it or not? Again, just there are a lot of variables, constants, variables which will be coming along because Web3 is not Web2. You have to understand that. And if somebody is asking you a question, hey, you know what? Where is your 100,000 developers and $500,000 as a revenue month on month?
Yeah, that's usually an investor that doesn't know what they're talking about, especially with early stage crypto projects. And what I tell those investors is, hey, maybe crypto startup investing isn't your game. Maybe you should go buy a low cost S&P 500 index fund instead. Maybe that's more your speed because you clearly don't know what the you're talking about. Show me what project in crypto has 500K MRR.
Yeah, so basically that is what I just wanted to put it very straightforward is like there will be people talking about all of those things, but it does not mean like you have not achieved PMF. The market is small.
For investors in crypto that are telling pre-seed, seed stage crypto companies, where's your 500K MRR? Stop it. You don't know what the talking about. That is silly. Stop it.
Yeah, I completely agree on that. I believe that is something which a lot of founders are going to love about after hearing this out in a very loud. You as a founder should start thinking about the TAM of Web3 is not so high. So stop putting $100 billion market for yourself. Just keep 100 million or that is also fine.
I really want to see at the early stage for me as an investor and a builder, a company builder, I really want to see the stickiness of early users. I want some kind of qualitative you have a small but growing set of users who really love something about what you're doing. That really matters.
And also there is a scope of expansion. So let's say if you're building a product which cannot bring Web2 people to Web3, I don't think like that product requires anymore. If it is totally dependent on Web3, that is different thing. But if you're building a product which has a capability to bring Web2 people, then it can have a PMF at the longer run of time. But again, it's a question of time and all of those things. But
so some companies are pure crypto Web3 companies, and they are highly reliant on the space growing, the total TAM of crypto or Web3 growing.
Yeah.
Other companies are what I would call Web2 to Web3 bridge companies. They can suck in users from Web2 and like Spheron. That's what I'm so excited about you guys, right? Like that's a Web2 to Web3 bridge company. For the Web2 to Web3 bridge companies, what I have found is you will usually find in terms of market sizing, we talk about SOMs, SAMs, and TAMs. And that's basically like your SOM is your serviceable obtainable market. It's your first market. It's what we would call your beachhead market. It's how you get early traction. And then that can grow into a SAM, your serviceable addressable market. That serviceable addressable market is nested inside of the much larger TAM, the total addressable market that you exist in. For Web2, this is really important for Web2 and Web3 bridge companies. I think the playbook that I've seen time and time again that works is you start off with Web3 native as your SOM, as your initial beachhead. You try to penetrate that market, get a lot of adoption within that early beachhead market, and then you start to expand the feature set to address like Web2, like normies who are experimental or are interested or crypto curious. That is kind of like your larger SAM that your SOM sits in. And then that will bridge you into a much larger total addressable market as the crypto market starts to eat more of Web2. And I think it's going to happen. It is happening. It's going to take a little bit of time, especially now that like FTX a lot of things up, and now a lot of people are like looking at like what is going on in this space. But it will happen. Web3 will eat Web2. It's just a matter of time. And so for like to stay alive as a crypto company, I think that's the right sequence of markets that you should try to go after, depending on, again, there's a lot of nuance here, depending on specifically what you're building, but I think that's the right playbook.
Just to do few fire questions as well to you, right?
Yeah.
So in this fire round, you just have to just tell, okay, this one is or this one. Okay. So, and there should not be like any explanation around it. The moment you just take it, you take it.
First thought. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. So one thing is like FTX versus government versus Web3 developers or Web3 like OGs, like, or the people who are building Web3. Who is going to be WGMI?
I mean, Web3 developers.
It's a natural question, but there is also I'll contradict on that as well. So there is a combination which we have to come up with. But Web3 developers, thank you so much for answering that. I just wanted to keep it very simple for you so that you can basically like then let's
I can explain why. Like composability is the killer feature of Web3. Like it is the killer feature. Anyways. Okay, yeah. Now I'm talking your book.
So coming to the second question, idea, product, and community, or idea, community, and product, which is suitable in Web3?
Idea, product, community.
I love that.
Yeah. You have to build a thing for somebody to use and it needs to do something for them. Otherwise, you can only meme yourself into early users and adopters for so long before they now meme into something else because you're not providing any value.
Coming to the next question, which is going to be interesting around the founders, basically, like who are in their pre-seed or seed stage, 100,000 users versus 10,000 users.
10,000 really enthusiastic users who love you and love your product. Small markets and then building around those small markets, I think, is almost always the right playbook. There's a few instances where that's not the case. They're more of like generalized technology solutions, which I think you want to go for mass scale first. Like a lot of the L1s in the early days, that's what they needed. But most startups, technology, crypto startups, 10,000 really enthusiastic users.
Got it. The final question, which is going to be around, is like VC money versus angel money during pre-seed or seed stage.
Oh, that's easy. Angel money. So here's the thing. Money is a commodity. Crypto is built on top of money. So money is actually very easy, especially in crypto. You want the smartest money you can get access to. And I think usually angels are that because, VCs, and no disrespect to VCs, I'm now a VC, but a lot of VCs have never built companies before. Again, no disrespect. No, I don't mean that disrespectfully. Like that is a thing that's very valuable when you start getting to like your Series A, Series B stage. But if you are an early stage founder at that pre-seed seed stage, I think, and again, I'm using a bit of a heuristic here, but I think angel money is actually the best type of money to put in your cap table because angels are usually founders turned investors. And so they can be really strategic, very value add in the early days of trying to navigate the product market fit. I think once you have some semblance of product market fit, then you want like a really good, strong strategic VC to go on your cap table. They can write much larger checks and they can do all kinds of things for you. But in the early stages, I think you want really as best as you can, hands-on money. That's smart money on your cap table.
Let me ask you final two questions. It is not a fireside. Fireside is done. Those were like very interesting thing which you have like told. I believe that is something which also showcases like how transparent we are as such, like while we are talking as well. The interesting thing which I always ask anyone, like whoever I invite to proof of builders, I ask them this question. The reason I'm asking this question to everyone is because so that the belief of this becomes stronger and stronger as we move forward. A lot of time we hear question something called, is crypto a scam? Yeah. Till now, whatever we have discussed, just keep it aside. By that, we can really think of like it is not a scam. There are people, real people who are building it. Yeah. Not some anonymous or some people who are building it. There are real people who are building it. So if you have to answer this to somebody else, like is crypto is a scam? What do you think? Like, is it a scam or is it going to be scam? One of the biggest world scam, or is it going to be something which is going to change the life of some very low level middle class family or low level poor class family or whatever family out there?
I mean, obviously I'm building in the space. I've dedicated my life to this space. I've dedicated my career to this space. All of my friends and the people that I care about for the most part are in this space. So very clearly, I do not believe that crypto is a scam. I believe crypto technologies, these decentralized, composable, interoperable technologies are the next iteration of the internet. I believe it's opening up even more value democracy to people all over the world. And I truly believe in these technologies to build a more fair, a more open, a more interoperable ecosystem. I'm old enough to remember life, like the internet came around. I got onto AOL as a kid when I was, God, I must have been 12 years old, 12 or 13 years old, something like that. I'm in the US. I lived in what they call the flyover states, right? So like the big cities are like New York and San Francisco. And I lived in the middle of the country, which is called the flyover states. So they're like these like podunk, nobody gives a fuck about them states. And when the internet came along, it opened up the entire world for me. Like, I was into like video games, and I got into chat rooms, and I remember when I first logged into AOL, being able to like get stock quotes was like, holy shit, like what is this? And I think crypto is the next iteration of that. It's the next set of building blocks for this more fair, open, interoperable world that I think is going to bring in even more people into being able to create value, create networks, be a part of networks within this world. And so, I very clearly don't believe crypto is a scam. And that does not mean, though, that there are not bad actors. There are bad actors in this space, just like there are bad actors in every industry and every space. And so I think, for founders or builders in the space, your job is to play the long game, focus on your customers or users, and build something of value for them. And, don't spend any time worrying about or thinking about the bad actors. One of the things that I've had to learn in this space is I'm somebody who naturally likes to I like to big up the things that I see that I think are positive and having a good impact. So like, I love talking about, our Spheron boys, Prashant and Mitcha, and, the amazing things that you guys are building. I spend almost no time calling out the bad actors. I'm starting to do that more now because I do think it's important to call out some of the bad actors so that they don't continue to make a bad name for our space. And I've really been on the fence about this because I don't like to talk disparagingly about anybody. But, our industry has bad actors just like every industry. And
agree. And I'll be very honest, like when I started into Web3, a lot of my family member was not doing like what I do. And I never told them is because they might start thinking like what we are doing is a scam. But at this point of time, but I was very sure like what I wanted to achieve with this in this space. And today, seeing this as a more than $1 trillion market, I don't know if anyone is going to be calling it as a scam. They are fooling themselves.
Right. That's right.
They are just trying to be in 1990s era when they do not, in India basically, when nobody wanted to like bring computer in because they thought like a lot of jobs are going to be lost, so don't bring computers. But computer came and it was not a scam. Like it was real thing which really changed the entire world. So crypto is also going to be. But I am going to be asking these questions more to the people who are not into Web3, or else it will be unjustified answers I'll be getting always. Final thing from you, right? What is one advice apart from whatever we have just spoken till now? What is one more advice which you want to add on top of that?
I guess aside from everything that we've talked about today, I would say there's this quote on my Twitter header photo by this author, Charles Bukowski, and it says, "Find what you love and let it kill you." And I love that quote. I think I live my life that way. And I would encourage everybody to find your tribe, find your people within this space. There's a lot of really smart, high integrity people building in crypto and building in Web3. Find them, but more importantly, find your contribution to the space and build a company around it. That's what I would say.
That is great, Gab. I don't know if anyone is going to put their head around this 1 hour. They don't have to like read anything else in the future in the front of the Web3. That is what I can see like on the founder perspective. But thank you a lot, and thank you so much again for coming over and being very honest in whatever you have just spoken. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I would just say if you are an early stage builder and founder, I'd love to meet you. You can visit our website, graphpapercapital.xyz. We're early stage investors and accelerators. So we love meeting really smart, high integrity people that are building the next iteration of this wonderful space that we all love. So we'd love to meet you.
And on top of that, believe me, Gab is the guy you should be working with. So thank you, Gab. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.